right. Hello, everyone. I think we're live. Make sure everyone can hear me. Let me know if the music or the voice that needs to be changed. It's a setup that I don't normally use, the sort of camera setup. Anyways, welcome. Hello. Thank you for joining me on a Sunday. Today we're going to be looking at this Mac clone. Going to be cleaning it up a bit. Going to look inside. I have not opened this machine since I got it, and it is very dirty. So we're going to start with just some cleaning, and then we'll explore the inside of it a little bit and talk about it. This is music is too loud. All right, let me bring that down. I'll just bring it down for you. Hopefully that's better. Drop it some more. There we go. Okay. Hopefully that's better. Let me know if I can make some more adjustments. Hello, hello. Everybody, welcome. Very dirty clone. Okay, yeah, so here is the front of this thing. You can see it there. This is a Power Computing. It is a Power Computing Power Center Pro 180. Now, this is a really interesting. It's a really interesting clone company. We'll talk more about them as we clean it up. I cannot make the voice. I can make the voice a little louder. Let's see, nice and smooth. Here we go. Check 1, 2. Hello, hello. Look, it's not a stream if you don't spend the first 5 minutes tinkering with stuff. Okay, so you can see the front of it here. We've got optical drive. We've got a zip 100 drive up here on the top. Floppy drive that's built into the main chassis, not one of the expansion bays. It's a bit of a mess. So I got this about 6 months ago, and it was a lot dirtier than I was led to believe. So we're going to work on just doing some general cleaning first, and then we'll open it up and we will see how bad it is. I'm going to try to keep an eye on the chat room too. All right. So we're going to start. I got some Windex, I got some baking soda, I got a toothbrush and water. We got a bunch of stuff. And this is not an exaggeration, like this thing is nasty. So I'm going to start with some gloves, at least on the outside. Here, oh good, I think the audio's fixed. Okay, so also this isn't, can you see this? Like it's not even sealed all the way. Pretty gross. Anyways, we're going to start with just some general case cleaning. Probably not going to get far enough to power it on today. I'm definitely concerned about the state of the inside of the machine, seeing how gross the outside of the machine was. But you can see it's just coming right off. Thankfully, it doesn't smell. Sometimes you get machines that look like this, and maybe they were in a home or an office where people smoked. That does not seem to be the case with this one. Usually you can still smell that, like never comes out of the plastics. This doesn't smell like that. So I don't know, maybe this was used in some sort of industrial setting, or maybe it just sat in someone's attic for a long time. Now, the sides came pretty good here. See, this is going to require a bit more. See, this stuff isn't really coming off. Let's see. I'm going to adjust my camera moment just a little bit. There we go. First, you just want to get this loose stuff off, and then we'll contend with some of the other problems. Now, in terms of the case material itself, there's a crack here on the plastic that I'm a little worried about, especially because the side and the front don't match. But it's a bit of a mess. So this stream is part of Relay FM's fundraiser for St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. That campaign, if you're watching this in real time, closes tomorrow, Monday the 3rd, 12 p.m. Eastern. As of last night, overnight, we broke our all-time record from last year. So we are now at almost 700. We just crossed $702,000 raised for St. Jude, which is absolutely incredible. So if you are fundraising or you haven't given yet, you still got some time. Again, if you're watching this live, you want to go to stjude.org/relay. Okay, I'm just going to throw those on the floor. So now we're going to try, getting some of this stuff off. It's more dark around the buttons. I mean, I think someone in the chat thought, maybe this was used in a print shop or, some industrial setting. And, maybe like your fingers are dirty, you're messing with it because this is all kind of around here. So anyways, I'm going to try. Oh, I don't have something to mix this up in. Give me 1 second. Let me find something I can mix some baking soda and water in together. It's like looking around my office or something. Oh, we'll just do it on the table, I guess. I was looking for something. Here we go. There. We'll mix it up in this. I meant to bring a little saucer out here, but I didn't. But we're going to use some baking soda. And I've got just like a coarse old toothbrush. And we're going to try to see if we can get some of this area cleaned a little bit. Of course, I want to be careful not to get a bunch of water in the machine, even though I don't think we're going to be powering it on today. But I just kind of want to see how this does. Around this reset button. It's doing a pretty okay job. Yeah, magic erasers would work well too, if I had any. I don't think I do. I looked earlier in the house and didn't spot one. But this is I kind of actually like the toothbrush approach because you can be a little bit more exacting with where you're cleaning. Yeah, look at that. Already a lot better. It's amazing how just cleaning will make a machine look so much better. And there's a bunch down here. So we gotta talk about clones, right? So period in the 90s where Apple, I'm sure most of you know, decided to license Mac OS to a bunch of different companies so they could build their own Mac compatible clones. And of course, Apple had really seen the amazing thing that had happened in the PC market, where you had a bunch of PC clones and compatibles that just taken off. And that was about a decade before Apple did all this. At this point, it's Wintel and it's Microsoft, and the leadership at the time thought, well, this will be a way to bring in additional revenue. We can license the Mac OS. And what Apple really, I don't know if they didn't plan for it or what, but these companies were able to make machines that in some cases were vastly better than what Apple was making. So you had companies like Radius and Umax and then Power Computing. Power Computing, I think, is one of the most interesting because, one, they ultimately got bought out by Apple, but also they were one of a couple of companies that were really pushing what Mac OS could do, or what the Mac could do further than Apple. And so you had these companies all of a sudden coming out with processors they were better and faster than what was in the Mac. Or you had dual processor machines where Apple didn't have that up and running yet. And now this particular machine that I have here is not particularly special in terms of clones. So this is, like I said, it's the Power Center Pro 180, kind of a middle of the road tower from Power Computing. Came with a 604E, which was a little bit nicer than what Apple was shipping at the time, but Apple was sort of caught up with that eventually. But like I said, by the end of it, Apple ended up buying out Power Computing. They ended up supporting Power Computing hardware for years, and this company went away. This company is also interesting in the fact that they were located in the same city in Texas as Dell, trying to, I think, take advantage of some of the expertise that was in the area in terms of building machines, building them to order, which was something that Dell really brought to the computer market that some other companies hadn't, in terms of, you know, just-in-time construction and that sort of thing. Things that you really see in the car market more than the computer market at this time, Dell was at the forefront of. And so Power Computing, which had this very rich founder, it's kind of a wild story. You should go read about Power Computing this afternoon. They did a lot of things right. And I don't know if they were the most successful in terms of business selling clones. I just don't know. But they were definitely successful in terms of getting under Apple's skin when, you know, new leadership came in after the next acquisition and the company realizing this was a pretty bad mistake. So you can see already how much better this machine looks than it did even just a couple of minutes ago. There's a lot of stuff down here at the bottom. See, there's this line across here. I don't know if it was like rubbing against something. It cuts right across the label. Thankfully, the label's still really nice and intact, but this machine definitely has seen some things in its life. Yeah, as David points out, Motorola, I believe, was also in the area there at Round Rock, Texas. Oh, this makes such a mess. I gotta be careful around these buttons. I don't want to break them, but trying to get in there. Oh, paper towel. Oh, paper towels are over here. So already looking a lot better. Most of the marks off the top of the machine came off. There's some scratches through the paint, but nothing too bad. So I haven't seen the bottom yet. Let's see. Oh, baking soda's over there. The bottom is actually pretty clean. And that's something when you're looking at one of these old machines and you're trying to figure out what sort of life it led, the feet will often tell a story. So sometimes they'll look like they're misformed, and maybe they worked in a really hot environment and melted down. These feet look pretty good. there's really just some dust on the bottom. It doesn't look like it's ever, at least for long periods, sat in liquid. There's no signs of rust or corrosion. So I'm really happy with how the bottom of this looks, especially given how rough the front and side panels were. So now I can see this a little bit better. There's some, probably can't see it. I can feel it. There's some melt in the plastic right here. Sometimes what happens is these get wrapped with like mouse or keyboard cable that has rubber in it. And sometimes over time, if it's stored in heat, that will eat into the plastic of the case. So maybe that's just what happened there, or it got moved and the nick got taken out of it or something. But so there's a crack here and a little nick here. But other than that, other than being really dirty, it's really not too bad so far, physically at least. Yeah, that looks shockingly better. So I'm gonna open it up. We can peek inside, see what's going on there. So the case is not fully seated, so hopefully nothing too bad is happening inside. This machine has a manufacture date of July 1997. There's a sticker on the back. Again, it had a 604E as its processor. There's no specs printed on the back, but looking up online, this probably would have had the 604E and, oh, I can look at the specs on my phone. I can look at those in a second, or we can figure it out when we open it. Let's see. Okay, so here's the inside of the machine. You think, Stephen, that looks like a PC from the 90s. It does. So here we have, we had one card installed that put USB ports on the back. All the I/O on the logic board, you have audio in and out, ADB, Ethernet, serial, parallel, video. Okay, I just found that chunk of dust. That's pretty gross. Let's see. So we got the switching power supply up top. It's labeled power computing. Here's our CD drive. Top. I mean, it's just really, really dirty. So here's our hard drive here. PRAM battery in there. It uses one of the short little round cylinder ones. It looks okay. I don't see any signs of corrosion or leaking. Which is good. We've got one exhaust fan, and the power supply is a fan, one exhaust fan here, and there's a fan blowing up or down, I guess, because there's some heat sink fins in here held in by this bracket. This is really dirty inside. I mean, just absolutely filthy. I'm gonna get my trash can. Let's see. Oh, that's gross. I'm gonna have a lot to clean up from my cleanup today. I'm just trying to get these major areas dust free. I don't really see a reason why the case wasn't aligned. I think whoever just put it together last didn't do a very good job. All of these little fingers are still here that it grabs onto, so. I was kind of wondering, if this had been used in a business, if I was going to open it, like the hard drive was going to be missing or something, but the hard drive is there. Again, I haven't booted this. I have no idea what sort of state it's in electrically. But seeing how dirty it is, I'm glad that we decided to clean it up first, because it's really nasty. I don't think I've shown you the back of it. There's the back here. So we have all of our I/O here. This is that USB card. It has 5 total slots, only one being occupied currently by that USB card. So this machine came out in '97. The iMac was a year later. So someone was using this and clearly wanted to be aboard the USB bandwagon. All Mac clones ran System 7. Or Mac OS 7, 7.6, whenever they made the name change. A couple companies got their hands on Mac OS 8 licenses, including Power Computing. I think they and Umax both were the only two that got OS 8. There are ways to get OS 9 running on these. If you go back and read old forum posts, some people got that working. And but in terms of OS 10 support, that's not a thing on these. The 604E is just too old. So again, I'm just getting the big chunks of dust off and out of it before we get in any further. So it's interesting. So the way this works, so the logic board is along the back case here, and there's a daughter board that all the slots are in. So this USB card is into a daughter board that then plugs into the logic board itself, which is also pretty dirty. Ugh. So my guess is this thing was used for a long time and then put in storage in an attic or a basement. But the construction is very typical of 90s PCs, like Molex cables, a bunch of ribbon cables, the separate audio out from the CD drive to your headphone port on the front, or I guess on the back. Sharp, this thing is full of sharp edges. Some of them are rounded over, like through here, where you could access these connectors for the optical drive. But all in all, pretty 90s in here. I'm just gonna see if I can slide the hard drive back and do a little more cleaning. Again, this is part of Relay FM's campaign for St. Jude. We do it every September. September is Childhood Cancer Awareness Month. I got one more stream after this. Tomorrow at the same time, I'm sitting down with David Sparks, my co-host on Mac Power Users, and we're going to be going through our tech bags. And we we've raised $702,000, which is more than we raised last year, which is just incredible given where the world is. Thank each and every one of you who have donated or have shared about the campaign to friends and family. It's absolutely amazing. We want to go to stjude.org/relay if you haven't given yet. If you're running a fundraising campaign, and there's like 270 of you that are, that and our page will all close tomorrow, Monday, October 3rd at noon Eastern. So just a couple of more days left, or really not even a couple of days, like 20 hours or something. Okay, so here's the hard drive. So it's an IBM drive. Looks like, so to see the capacity, 2 gigs. It's an IBM OEM drive, so I bet this is the original drive. Let's see if I can unplug it here. There we go. I'll set that aside. Get a little more room in here to clean. So let me read y'all some of the specs of this machine. Oh, my hands are sweaty. Sorry, got my notes here. So this is PowerCenter Pro 180. Okay, so a 60 megahertz system bus, but 180 megahertz. Again, Motorola 604E, the PowerPC 604E. 4 megabytes of ROM. It had level 1 and level 2 cache, which is pretty nice. Megabyte of VRAM. Maximum RAM was 512 megabytes, but the standard was either 16 or 64. So let's actually see. Let's see how much RAM is in here. So here's one of our RAM sticks. Doesn't. Oh, this is 64 megabytes. Next to it is. Well, this is Texas Instrument RAM, but I don't see the capacity on it. So this was maybe a 16 stick, and they put a 64 in. The 64 is a different brand, so probably upgraded. In this slot here, we have what I believe. Yeah, so this here is there's a DIMM in here for the ROM. So I'm gonna put this RAM back in where it went. These RAM slots only have release tabs on one end. They kind of go into a station. I've forgotten. That used to be a thing. They kind of slide into place, and then just on one end they get locked in. Well, this one doesn't want a seat. Let's see. There we go. And again, up front we had CD drive, zip drive, floppy drive. I'd like to get a little bit further into this so I could see the whole board before putting power to it. Not a lot of capacitors on this board. It's mostly like small, really small caps. So it looks like even the CPU is on a daughter board. So this is the 604E is on this board here. You see this beige retaining clip that has the fan on it. There's a big heatsink here. The early PowerPC machines, it's really surprising. You open some of them and how small the heatsinks are. Man, it's gross. Where's that toothbrush? But it's remarkable how bad of an idea the whole clone thing was. I mean, Apple had a pretty rough time in the 90s, as you probably know, with a lot of models, a lot of confusing products, a lot of overlap. It was very hard to understand when you walked into a dealer what Mac you should buy. And then if you went into a Sears, there were different Macs there to buy, like things like the Performa line or the short-lived Centris line, which may be my favorite because there were like 4 of them. And then you had this decision. And like now, at the time, Apple was making their money on hardware, right? They were an integrated system. And the licensing agreement for System 7 was just not very conducive to Apple. And like I said earlier, these other companies were making better machines than Apple was making, or cheaper, or both in some cases. And it really didn't, the Mac itself didn't really stand up very well to some of these other machines. Yeah, there were some bad clones too, right? Like some of them were just cheap, put together. Some of them were like this one, which is kind of completely irremarkable in a lot of ways, but it put pressure on Apple in a way that they didn't need, and I don't think they foresaw coming. And it's just astonishing in hindsight that they ever considered it. But at the time, right, Wintel, Microsoft and Intel, the PC, Windows 95, Windows 98 coming out a year after, or about 8 months after this machine. You could see kind of why they'd make the decision, right? Like, oh, this is extremely popular and positive in other parts of the industry, and maybe they thought they could replicate some of that. If you want to see more, listen more about this, my buddy Quinn over at Snazzy Labs did a video on the Mac clone a couple of years ago. That's really, really good. That you should definitely go watch. I think it's actually the best single source out there to like really kind of understand what they were doing. And again, a bunch of companies were in on it, right? Radius, which had been making accessories for the Mac, and then they sort of found I think it's Radius, they found basically a manufacturing partner. And then you had companies like Power Computing, which got into the game because they could build clones. And Power Computing had a very wealthy founder, and they spent a whole bunch of money. And Power Computing, I wrote about this years ago, but Power Computing kind of took over like the emotional center of the Mac universe for a minute. Like they had all this artwork of like, let's, go kick Intel's butt, although they didn't use that word. And they had all of this like sort of rowdy marketing that really was attractive to people who thought, the Mac was the best computer on the market, but were afraid that Apple was going to sink it. And so Power Computing for a second there kind of had like this place in the community of, hey, these guys really care about the Mac software, right? And I mean, their hardware business was killing Apple, but so a very strange and complicated time in the Mac community for sure. I'm gonna catch up on the chat room. I got my iPad up here. Let's see. Tony said, I think the drive I took to college was 3 gigabytes. I never came close to filling it. Yeah, I mean, it's amazing how much our data has just exploded over the years. David says, I wonder if clones could have worked at Apple with the license in a way being more niche and profitable. I mean, maybe. In reality, Apple was probably screwed either way. I don't think the clones are what, is what we're going to drive Apple out of business, but the clones certainly didn't help. So here's the other side of the chassis. It's just well, that looks like that comes off. Let's see the back of this board. Let's see. There we go. Oh, I think this is a gun I'm going to take the logic board with it. Yeah, they're standoffs that are holding the logic board to this, but we'll see if we can move it at all. Yeah, this is... Yeah, so if you took... So this is the logic board tray. There's standoffs in here the logic board is screwed into. That's more disassembly than I want to do at the moment. Didn't really want to strip this thing all the way down. What I may do is I may take it outside and blow it out with some compressed air and see how far we get. But there's an interesting angle to this in thinking about the integrated versus the partner kind of version of building a machine. I mean, clearly in personal computers, there's something to the idea that someone makes the software and then a bunch of companies make the hardware, right? That's how Windows works, that's how Linux works. The Mac has never worked that way. And the Mac is more successful than it's ever been, but it's still a drop in the bucket, really, compared to the legions of PCs that have been sold. But when you come to the mobile market, the same dichotomy sort of exists, right? You have Apple doing the integrated thing, and then you have Google working on Android, and of course other people build on top of Android. And then you have a bunch of manufacturers making devices. It's just interesting how sort of the debate is never really gone away. And Apple's always kind of been on one side of it in terms of making the hardware and the software. Ugh. Gross. All right, I'm gonna take this outside and I'm gonna blow it out real quick and I'll be right back. I'm just gonna leave the stream going. And I'm wearing my microphone, so you'll probably hear this. But I do not want to do this inside. So I will be right back. Talk amongst yourselves. Oh, hello. My family's outside. I'm still streaming. Okay. All right, that is much better. Hello. You need MVO's dust collection system. Indeed. That guy's got tubes for days. Okay, so that's much cleaner inside. I'm a little worried. The power supply fan didn't move when I blew some compressed air in there. It does move, but it feels really bad. I bet those bearings are pretty shot in there. Let's see. Ugh, it's gross. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about power computing here. So they, like I said, they ended up being bought by Apple in September of '97. So just a few months after this thing was built. $10 million in Apple stock and about $10 million in cash. And they became a subsidy of Apple. And for a minute, Power Computing said, oh, we're going to make other computers. And that got shut down pretty quick. A bunch of their employees and engineers ended up being absorbed into Apple. Others got laid off, kind of a typical thing, unfortunately. And anyone who had one of these was given macOS 8.1 to run on it. And like I said, Umax was the other company that was able to run macOS 8. And then they kind of, faded away there. And Apple supported the hardware for a while, like until 2001. But, at that point, we're well into the, well, not well into, but we're into the OS X transition. And anything running a PowerPC 604E was going to be stranded on the classic macOS anyways. I'm going to put the hard drive back in so I know where it is. $10 million in Apple stock would be pretty nice now. Yeah, someone, like I said, the founder of the company was wealthy. And I'm sure that he made some of his money back. Being brave, all this stuff is really sharp. Just going to try not to cut my hand open live on the internet. Yeah, interesting machine. Kind of. An interesting story. Like I said, this particular machine is not super exciting, but you could get dual processor ones, and Radius and some others had some interesting design elements. Some of them were exceedingly 90s compared to others. This is a beige box full of metal. Like it's pretty 90s. All right, so we got our IDE cable. Actually, that's not IDE, that's SCSI. And we've got 4-pin power. Yep, that's how it goes. I'm basically Linus Tech Tips now. I do at some point want to boot this up. I'm not prepared to do that today, but it's pretty clean, and laying it down, I can see most of the board. I think it'd be safe to do it. So maybe that'll be a part 2 sometime later this year. Because I would like to explore it a little bit more. I mean, when you boot it up, it's going to be running, if it has an OS on it, 7 or 8. And once you're in it, I mean, it's Mac OS. Like, a lot of them had system extensions and other things, especially if you were running a dual processor system. And some of them came with like bloatware on them. But for the most part, if you were to sat somebody down, they didn't really see any of that stuff. They wouldn't know they weren't running a Macintosh, which is kind of the whole point. Oh no, that screw is gone. Here it is. Yeah, there are a couple screws missing on the bottom of the case. All right. This tip on the screwdriver is not magnetic, so I gotta be. There we go. There are some G3 upgrades for it. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I did some reading. I mean, there was definitely, like anything, a group of people dedicated to extending the life of these things, and companies that'd be more than willing to sell you components to do so. But really, I mean, even on the Mac side, even Macs, 96, 97, like, there were a lot of computers that didn't make the jump to 10. And there were even, I mean, if you get a little bit further down the road, projects like ex post facto to run, Panther or something on a system that didn't support it. It's always been a thing, trying to get software and system support to hardware that didn't have it. Let's take this bottom plate off. Oh, well, here's one set of those little copper things. Yeah, so you can get to the RAM through here, and then that's the PCI slot. So the screws for the PCI slots are on the bottom. So you have to take the bottom off there. You can see that. That's the USB card right there. And even though you've got 5 blank in there, there's only 3 slots on this particular card. Others may have had more. And this is a ATI 3D Rage 2. Is that GPU? So I might as well clean this bottom tray off. It's not too bad. Better question though, what would it be the custom 512 pixels tool be? A sledgehammer. Maybe so. So let me get that lined back up. I'll try to find some extra screws fit in there. Definitely not as nice to work inside as my 2019 Mac Pro was, that's for sure. Get all this squared back up. Okay. And I'm going to put the enclosure back on it after I wipe down the inside of it here. Ooh, it's gross. Okay. Still some baking soda on the side of it, but I'll give it another wipe down. Yeah, no wheels either. It's a bummer. All computers should have wheels. Oh man, there's some broken plastic tabs on this thing. Come on. We got all these little copper tabs back in there. No! Come on. There we go. See if I can get this back together any better than it was. Okay, well, it's in on both sides. And we're missing some case screws too. This has definitely been opened over the course of its life. Like we found that RAM upgrade in there. And someone put the USB card in, and whenever they did, they just didn't put all the screws back in. But I'm going to put the two bottom case screws in so it holds it together better than it was. So this time tomorrow, I'll be on stream with David Sparks going through our bags. Like I said, later this month, I'm going to do a stream. My last stream that I owe y'all from the St. Jude campaign will be a packing calendar stream. My thought is that may be over a weekend, and it may be like a all-day thing with just music, and just that's what we're going to do. Someone had that idea, so I ran with it. But I want to get back to this machine later this fall. For now, it's going to go on the shelf, but at least it looks way better than it did 45 minutes ago. There's still some cleaning to do around here. When I do it for real, I'll probably take this front plate all the way apart and be able to clean it. Maybe do some retro bright, although it's not really bad. Like, see on the main camera, the color mismatch between the paint and the plastic is not terrible. Sometimes when you retro bright, if you go too light, it'll look worse. But there is some yellowing up here, so I may attempt that, but just do it very gently, just a little bit. And I'd want to do it in a way where I don't mess up this power computing label. So anyways, I think that will do it for today. If you haven't donated, you've got less than a day left, stjude.org/relay. Again, the community has been absolutely amazing this year. $702,000 puts us above what we did last year. We honestly didn't expect to be able to do that this year with the world, and we're just so psyched that we were able to. So if you have given, or if you've done a fundraising campaign. Thank you so much. It means the world to us, not just me as a dad of a St. Jude patient, but as someone who, you know, just walking around in the world wanting it to be a better place. St. Jude does a lot of good stuff for that. So go learn more and donate at stjude.org/relay. And I will